Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze, and welcome to this Wednesday edition. Tonight, we will be going live as well with our Studying Abraham series, Finding the Biblical Truth. Excited about that. We're going to be jumping into chapter 17, not getting through all of it, but a good chunk of it. And I think it's one of the most overlooked and neglected passages in all the Bible. And if you will study Genesis chapter 17 well, you will have to acknowledge dispensational truths, which we know evangelicalism doesn't want to do that because it undermines so much of their, their power, the authority that they get to carry over you, because they get to apply a whole bunch of Old Testament and New Testament, New Covenant stuff to the church today. And they shouldn't, because we're not in the New Covenant. We're neither in the Old Covenant. We are in the mystery dispensation of the grace of God, which has now been revealed to Paul, our apostle. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. Hopefully you are excited for that. I'm excited for you to join us. Now, tomorrow we will have our Theology Thursday, but then that probably is going to be the last live stream for the week, probably. Going to wait and see how things play out on Friday, but I am heading to Branson Thursday evening with the whole family, okay? And so don't expect anything Friday, likely, but who knows what may happen during the course of the weekend. Stay tuned for all that. We're going to be talking about the conference a little bit here in just a moment, and we'll get to just a little bit, just the smallest bit of politics at the very end. But I'm going to go ahead and get into theology stuff, okay, right off the bat. I think that's going to be much more entertaining to me. Yeah, we are enjoying this shift in Oklahoma weather. And North Texas as well. You guys are getting some cooler temps. Just a very nice change of pace from what we normally get. And so I want to talk about Collegiate Week. All right. So the reason why I spend a lot of time talking about the SBC, okay, it's not entirely because I am a part of the SBC, in the sense that my church is an SBC affiliate church. I don't hide that. I know that some people write me off and say, oh, he's not a right divider, oh, he doesn't have good doctrine, and then I probably believe we need to rightly divide the Bible even more than they do. But anyways, the reason why I focus on it is just because the SBC is such a big factor, okay? It is such a, where I am in the southeast, the Southern Baptist Convention still to this day rules the roost when it comes to churches. Their power, the money they have, the influence they have. And we've talked about this, even though there's a lot of non-denominational churches out there, so many of them are they're just SBC churches without the sign, okay? Rather than being called, I don't know, First Street Baptist Church, Berry Street Baptist Church, it's the fellowship, the gathering, the whatever, right? Whatever, something Bible church, okay? That's what they are. They are, in essence, Southern Baptist churches. Now, some of them are actually kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Secretly Southern Baptist. They actually are affiliated, but they don't advertise it. There's a church in town, for example, here that is not, you don't see really hardly anything on it except for on the very small bit on the sign. If you were driving by, you'd never notice it, but on the smallest part of the sign, a Southern Baptist church. And even the churches that are technically independent, they often donate to the North American Mission Board, the IMB. Think about McLean Bible Church in, D.C., basically, Virginia. It is technically, or at least was before David Platt did his takeover of it, kind of a hostile takeover as well, I would add, but regardless, they were technically an independent church, non-denominational, and the next thing they knew, they were giving to the SBC. So the SBC is just, once again, such a massive influence here It influences so many churches, and I'm going to talk about this matter of Collegiate Week. If you don't know what Collegiate Week is, I'll tell you in a moment. And so I don't keep this a secret. I have lots of grievances with the SBC, and I've told my church before, all they've got to do is just say, let's jump, and I'm ready to jump, okay? So don't read it as I'm over here an apologist for them. I am an opportunist, okay? There was a congregation that needed a preacher, and so I took advantage of the opportunity to preach the Bible rightly divided to them, plain and simple. My loyalty is to the Word of God, not to any convention, denomination, association. I want to make that clear. So all that being said, I do spend a lot of time addressing the SBC just because it's what I'm facing. If I was out in the West, maybe I'd spend more time addressing Catholicism. If I was more towards the East, maybe I'd spend more time addressing kind of mainline Protestantism. But where it sets, this is what is relevant to me. And the truth is, the Baptists have been so successful. The SBC, their influence, their reach has gone a long ways. So even some of you who are in the northern part of the United States, the western part of the United States, Canada, other countries even, you are going to be familiar with the SBC. Other than Catholicism, they are the largest Christian denomination, right? And so what I want to do is spend some time talking about this matter of Collegiate Week. So this is at Falls Creek here. And Falls Creek, of course, is a huge church camp. Once upon a time, even though probably always a little bit evangelical, had some redeeming qualities because you kind of had to be more dedicated to going because there wasn't all the air conditioning and all the things. You just had to be willing to go, and it was more outdoorsy, more adventurous. And nowadays, because there's so many safety precautions, it's not near as adventurous as it once was, I would say. But Falls Creek is, I would say, nothing that I would want to, even as a kid attend nowadays. But especially knowing the doctrine, the theology that's being churned out there is obviously extremely inaccurate, and it's run by Calvinists. But Collegiate Week is a week in typically early August. They're getting ready to go back to school, of course. These are all college students. And used to, they did it at Glorieta. Glorieta is a camp in New Mexico. Really, that's a cool experience. It's much more adventurous because there's mountains. And so, you can hike. There's trails there that you can go on. And I enjoyed Glorieta. At the time, I didn't have my theology very well, so the doctrine is not going to be very good. But as far as the experience, going to the mountains in New Mexico compared to the, anthills of Davis, Oklahoma, which I will say is pretty, okay? You have to admit, Davis, Oklahoma is a pretty location in those mountains there that we would call. But anyways, this is Collegiate Week. So I want to go ahead and share with you some of the comments, the thoughts that the Baptist Messenger here is going to have to say. All right, so coming out of Davis, Oklahoma, for many college students throughout the nation, August signifies the beginning of a new semester, Collegiate Week, a national event hosted at Falls Creek. And it is national, it really is. This is not just an Oklahoma thing. It's not a North Texas thing. It's not an Arkansas thing. It is really a national event. Now, here's what it says. It helps students start the school year with a renewed mission and purpose. The event aims at mobilizing this generation to be kingdom builders. Once again, it's like they never read the Bible. We can't build the kingdom. I don't know what smooth-talking, motivational speaking evangelical preacher convinced people that they had the capacity and the ability to build the kingdom of God, but wow, they fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. So, once again, there's that line. They're building the kingdom. Them Baptists, they've been building the kingdom now for a good while. I don't know if we're any closer yet. We're not. So here we go. This year, 1,900 college students and collegiate ministers participate. That's a pretty good number. I don't know how big it was at Glorieta. But that's a pretty good amount right there. The highest attendance in several years. In all, at least 24 states were represented, with attendees coming from as far as Alaska and Hawaii, as well as Canada. So once again, national, international type of event. It's a big deal. Mark Robinson, Director of Baptist Collegiate Ministries for Louisiana Baptist and Chairman of the Collegiate Week Planning Committee, notes Collegiate Week at Falls Creek was a profoundly blessed and spirit-filled gathering where God moved powerfully among students from across the nation, which is the same thing they say about every single event that they ever do. Messages from Timothy Addick, Julius Tennell II, and Jeff Lorg explored the believer's calling. We'll explore those speakers as they're exploring the believer's calling. We'll explore them if we can find anything on them online. I'm not sure who Timothy Addick, Julius Tennell II, and Jeff Lorg are. I bet if we investigate, they're going to be Calvinists. Other services included a panel discussion on mental health and exhortations from the SBC's two primary sending agencies. Mental health, I struggle with this. It seems to me like we have been making mental health a big deal and it's not getting us anywhere. I just think that the whole approach to mental health is not the proper approach. I think that there's something better there. I don't know why we seem to be obsessed with it, and I don't see us gaining any ground. Moving on. The North American Mission Board, the International Mission Board were promoted there. The BCM, Falls Creek as a whole, is a recruiting ground for the North American Mission Board and IMB. Plain and simple. It's what they do. 4 SBC seminaries were also on hand to meet students throughout the week. Seminaries are hurting right now. They really are. They're struggling in a lot of ways, and so I'm sure they're wanting to get attendance up. Attendees also raised more than $10,000 to support collegiate ministry in emerging regions, areas of the U.S. and Canada with a minimal gospel presence. Let's see here. Terry Thomas, BCM Director at Rose State College, testifies to the Spirit's work among students in his group. 2 of our students met with the IMB personnel to begin the journeyman application process. Another is looking into a missions residency program she learned about, and 2 others have decided to go on to seminary after they finish at Rose State. My controversial take is I think we need to be encouraging our young Christian women to get married to young Christian men and have Christian families. It's my recommendation. I think we've sent a lot of young Christian women over to the third world telling them they have the gift of singleness. I digress. These are not just camp high commitments, notes Thomas. These students have been praying about these things, but got that extra affirmation and encouragement they needed to move forward. It's been a great week. They do have to address that matter of camp high, because that's exactly what it is. Because I promise you, the sermons and preaching at Collegiate Week is not scholarly, okay? It's all emotionally driven. It's emotional appeals. God has a plan. God has a purpose for you. Emotionally manipulating music and all the like. In addition to breakout tracks for students and leaders, Collegiate Week offers a track specifically for those exploring a call to ministry, with nearly every session packed to capacity this year, Robinson states. This is a clear sign of hunger for biblical truth and leadership development. They act like this is a new thing. When I was in college, all these things stood true. Every breakout session that was about a call to ministry was going to be packed, and yet we haven't seen an increase in preachers. The SBC is still hurting for pastors. Churches in general are still hurting for pastors. So I don't know. All their big news about Collegiate Week, they've been saying all this stuff for a good while and not much has changed. Through praying, giving, and serving, Oklahoma Baptists play a key role in helping Collegiate Week accomplish its goal of mobilizing a generation. We are deeply grateful to Oklahoma Baptists for their generous investment in the next generation of ministry leaders, says Robinson. Your hospitality and commitment to Falls Creek continue to shape the future of the church in America. All right, so Collegiate Week, Falls Creek in general for high school kids, so many of it. There's also a spring retreat which goes on at Falls Creek. Guess when? In the spring for college kids. The SBC is in a bad spot, I really think. I think that they are hurting for, they have churches that are drying up. Attendance is just down. overall giving, I would imagine, is probably down significantly, especially when you think about the 80s, the 90s, when a lot of these small SBC churches were probably doing pretty well. And so on top of that, they're obviously lacking ministers, preachers. How many churches nowadays don't even have like deacons? They can't even find a man qualified to be a deacon. They're in rough shape. And so they really are leaning heavily on trying to get people on board through the BCM, the Baptist Collegiate Ministries. I just have a few thoughts here. Everything, I guess, is indoctrination. I'm trying to indoctrinate you. I just think my doctrine is correct because it's based on the Bible. It is such an effort just to... There's so much... I think there's so much manipulation that goes on here. God's calling people, they're going to use that term a lot to convince these young college kids they're being called to missions, they're being called to do this, called to do that. So let's see, Timothy Attic. I don't even know anything about him, but let's see if we can find out where he is from. He's from Dallas, sounds like. Watermark Community Church. Timothy Attic. He's the elder lead pastor. Already tell you that he's probably Calvinist. So there he is. He's very cool because he's picture of him in a polo there with a black background, blue light. Let's see. Let's see if we can find any doctrine here. Watermark Community Church. Our vision, our team, our core beliefs. We'll see. Are they going to be open about their Calvinist position or not? The Bible. We believe that the Bible is the verbally inspired Word of God without error in the original writings. See, there you go. They're copying so much of, like, Dr. Randy White's done a study on what they believe and why it matters. So the Bible we have today, it's not without error, because only the original writings were without error. God has not preserved His Word. That's what that means there. Let's see. We believe the man was created innocent and in the image and likeness of God, but that man sinned, bringing both physical and spiritual death to himself and his posterity. We believe God created mankind in His image. A little bit. Speaking about gender matters there. Conservative. Salvation. We believe salvation is a sovereign gift of God. That right there, a sovereign gift of God, sounds very Calvinist, and received by man through personal faith in Jesus Christ and His sacrifice for sin. We believe that Jesus Christ is the only means of salvation and that no one is saved apart from a conscious and personal decision to trust in Christ as his or her one and only Savior. Now that right there is interesting. A conscious and personal decision. That doesn't sound very Calvinist. But then they say we believe all true believers, elect of God, once saved, are kept secure in Christ forever. Now that sounds very Calvinist. See, it just sounds like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We believe in the future visible and bodily return of Christ to the earth, commonly called the second coming, to rule the nations and establish His kingdom. So at least they have a kingdom view there at their church that actually is accurate to a degree anyways. See if there's anything else we can get here to get any indication of their theology. Church, obviously they're going to mention the Great Commission there. We believe the church, the body and bride of Christ. I mean, it's just all standard down the line stuff. The end time, we believe in the personal, imminent coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. This event, commonly called the rapture, will be followed by great tribulation. Look at that. So, hey, they are at least holding to a pre-tribulation rapture. They have no reason why they would hold to a pre-tribulation rapture, probably, but they do. That's good. So there's some conservatism here. This is why I do tell you people, some who, and by I say you people, I mean those who do hold the right division, who get it. They kind of want to, and I'm not putting all of you in one basket. I'm just saying there's some out there who will kind of, I don't know, scoff at the idea of convincing Southern Baptists of right division. Guys, yeah, they have some Calvinist stuff baked in, but that's kind of where the Baptists came out of. They've got some groundwork here that actually you can get some stuff done. Okay? Not everyone. Okay, there's a lot of Southern Baptists that are trending towards Presbyterianism, amillennialism, postmillennialism, things like that. But there is some there, okay? When I got to my church, I was able to show up and teach a pre-tribulation rapture, and they were right there with me. That goes a long ways. So I really do try to pay attention. Hey, what is the influence on the young people I'm engaging with? Okay, because they're going to be the future churchgoers, leaders, to whatever degree that they have churchgoers and leaders in the coming years. What's their background? Where are they coming from? How am I going to deal with them? So this one, while it's not good, is certainly better than a lot of things, holding to a literal millennial kingdom. So there we go. So hey, not bad there. It could be a lot worse for this Timothy Attic. Now we got Julius Tennell II. I almost feel like I've heard of him before. I maybe feel like he's a Louisiana guy. I can't remember. The Summit Church. This has got to be him. Julius Tennell II. So here's him. Once again, dark black, bluish background. I don't know what's the deal with like dark black, bluish backgrounds, okay? One of these days, if I ever get to do the show out of my office at the church, I'm going to have like a very nice bookshelf in the background. Anyways, let's see here. Can we find out about their doctrine? Who we are, membership. I do need to work on, my doctrinal statements, I suppose, on my website, but some churches are not easy to find. So here's their church. Definitely a fancy place. Almost kind of looks like Falls Creek. Ooh, ethnic unity. There we go. Summit Church is committed to creating a movement of disciple-making disciples, men and women who reflect the diversity of our community, lived out in authentic unity. The more that you lean into ethnic unity, guys, the more that it's just going to be a problem, okay? Quit worrying about it. Okay, we're not worried. Like here at our ministry, our church, we're not worried about fostering ethnic unity, because the second that you make it an issue, then you're not going to have it. So a little bit liberal there, I feel like, a little bit progressive. Uh-oh. Here's what I found underneath their website. One moment. J.D. Greer is underneath their website. J.D. Greer is not what I would call conservative by any means. So that's interesting. So if they're working with J.D. Greer, that's right there under resources. That should tell you something. Or what books they have. What books are they offering? I don't really see. Just Ask. Is that J.D. Greer? Yeah, Pastor J.D. is what they're calling him. So, yeah, these are, like I said, this is as much recon for me as anything. I'm investigating, hey, when I have a young guy show up at my church, and he has an SBC background, he went to the BCM at the local college, whatever, what is he going to have, right? What is he bringing to the table concerning his doctrine? What is his view of the Bible? So that's why I'm doing this. You're getting to listen, watch me in real time, investigate who are these people that are influencing the young people. And so very interesting there. Yeah. I am very much against people like churches having preachers that don't look like preachers. Okay, that's why I try to dress the part. Goodness. Okay. All right, one more. We've got Jeff Lorg. Jeff Lorg. I have no idea who this is. Let's find out. Jeff Lorg is the President/CEO, SBC Executive Committee. So, Jeff Lorg was elected the 8th president, see, I didn't even know this, and CEO of the SBC Executive Committee in March 2024. This is just sbc.net. Tenure at Gateway Seminary. We're going to find out any more about him anywhere else. Does anybody know about Jeff Lorg here in this group? Here's an article from Christianity Today. They say he's a well-respected in Southern Baptist circles for his steady and low-key approach to leadership. Okay. I want to know his doctrine. I'd be much more interested in that. But sometimes finding doctrine on these guys is not easy because maybe they're not very deeply steeped in it. Not finding much here, really. Al Mohler backed him. That should tell you something. Probably. Not finding much else. I'm not finding much else about him right now. Let's see here. I mean, Mohler's obviously, big time Calvinist, so that should tell you some things. So these are the people that are heavily influencing the young college folk, and I'm not up against the college kids, okay? My anger and frustration is not with them because they're just college kids. Can we all admit that, when we were in our early 20s, mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, that we didn't have it all figured out. Maybe it continues on beyond that. But it's the establishment machine, right? You bring these kids up in their... Well, here's what frustrates me. Here's the truth. For the most part, these kids, a lot of them come out of local little community churches, some of them country churches, who are kind of raised with somewhat of a dispensational doctrine. At least they were back in the 80s and 90s. And then they go to the BCM. The BCM's not run by the country or small community dispensational Bible teachers. They're run by the seminary boys. And the seminary boys are Calvinists. And they're somewhat moderate. a little bit progressive even. And so your country kid who has some dispensational doctrine, and is it right division? No, but at the very least, they're going to have some basic dispensational idea, probably not at all really Calvinist in their theology. Then they get turned into Calvinists at the BCM through Bible teaching, going to events like this, collegiate week, whatever else. And they also get kind of turned into somewhat moderates, a little bit progressive. Hey, we got to talk about ethnic diversity and ethnic unity and all this stuff. And so it's the establishment machine that is influencing, swaying, manipulating these young kids. And one reason why they are so successful, why I think they really do have a lot of success, and I was almost, but my parents, had my head on straight enough, and then when I figured out right division, I was able to completely avoid it. My parents can tell you. It'd be interesting to have like my dad on sometime, or even my mom too, because they could tell you how much the BCM influenced my doctrine, how much it started to turn me into a Calvinist in some ways. Now, I never fully bought into, about the furthest into Calvinism I got was basically the idea that I never did accept the idea that God would hold man accountable and man had no say. I basically had it chalked up to being a mystery, okay? Not the mystery of Christ that we have today, but basically, God elects you before the foundation of the world, but He also knows. But at the same time, He's giving you free will, so you are. It was kind of a weak doctrine of compatibility view, but I never did jump all the way into the Calvinist camp. But I was messed up. I did not believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. I didn't even necessarily hold to a literal 7-year tribulation. I didn't even necessarily hold to I kind of had a spiritual view of the kingdom. I did think Christ was going to come and reign on the earth, but I did not have I would have said we were in the kingdom now, and Christ reigns in our hearts. Those are things I would have said, because the BCM indoctrinated me with all of their bad doctrine. And so I know what it's like to be in it, and thankfully came out of it. When I got away from the BCM, I started spending a lot of time talking to my dad more, trying to cleanse my palate and my mind of all the Calvinism that I was being taught. And my dad was helping me come along, but there was something missing. There was something systematic that I did not quite have, that I was really looking forward to solidify my doctrinal position. Okay, my basic doctrinal position was that God doesn't send people to hell because He wants to. I was looking for a good biblical argument to reject the Calvinist doctrine. And I had the very limited dispensational lens, but when I heard Dr. Randy White teaching, started reading some others, looking at some of the things that good dispensationalists had to say, I realized this is the systematic theology, the systematic doctrine that I've long been looking for. And this is the explanation for why we're living in the age we're in. This is the explanation for why there are these contradicting issues in the Bible like James and Paul, which so much of Christianity has just said it's not a problem, ignore it, whistle past the tulips, it's all okay. They're all talking about the same thing from just a different perspective, right? And so that's when I solidified my position due to a good systematic doctrinal position. So I don't blame these young guys because really, unless you have a good right division view, there is not a systematic theology that you're being presented with other than Calvinism. And really, because so many of these young college kids haven't even heard of rightly dividing the word of truth, the only systematic doctrine they've ever been exposed to is Reformed theology. And when you've only heard one type of systematic theology, then it's very easy to be persuaded. It's very easy to be convinced. So I feel bad for them, and I want to show them that there is a better way forward, that there is a better systematic theology. And that's one reason why I'm so excited about Dr. Randy White's Bible Conference. I really am. You need to be watching it, even if you can't attend in person. So his 11th annual Labor Day Bible Conference and Retreat, Rightly Dividing the Word, Systematic Theology for Biblical Literalists. We, in the right division world, I don't know, does Terrence McLean, or Terrence McLean, I think that's his name, does he have any kind of I don't know if he has any kind of systematic theology book necessarily. So I think we've long needed something like this. As far as books under Brother McLean's stuff, dispensationalism made understandable. I mean, there's a lot of things he's written on concerning systematic theology and that he's had published. And so many of these great men have come before us. But I'm very excited that Dr. White is actually compiling a systematic theology book, because this is how you win them over. This is how young men are thinkers, okay? And they want a systematic view of the Bible. It needs to make logical sense. They want their questions answered. They want every verse accounted for. They don't want it sugar-coated. They want the cold, hard facts. The Calvinists think the cold, hard facts is that God chooses certain people to save them and chooses certain people to go to hell. We say the cold, hard facts is those words in red that you love so much are not actually about you. And the truth is, which one's easier for people to accept? That's a funny question. Do people find it easier to accept that God sends people to hell because He wants to, all for His glory? Or do they find it hard to accept that Jeremiah 29:11 is not all about them? That's where the rubber meets the road, it seems like. People would just assume, believe in a God that hates certain people, as opposed to saying, wait, you mean Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John aren't all about me? It's a fascinating thing. But I'm very excited about it. He's got a few things here. What do the Scriptures say about the nature of God, man, salvation, the work of Christ, the church, and so much more? At this conference, we will systematically study theology, rightly divided, giving you a comprehensive understanding of doctrine that will strengthen your faith and your ability to teach others. I think it's going to be really good. I'm very, very excited about it. I am going to give you a good recap of it. Even though you'll be able to watch the whole thing, you're going to get my thoughts. That's one thing I'm wanting to do. I don't know if that's going to be able to happen and be recorded. at the conference, or if it's going to be something that comes later, comes afterward. I wanted to do something like this for you last year, and then of course everything didn't work out exactly like I wanted. But here's the thing. I want you to look at this schedule, which is, it's a little bit more than what mine is. But maybe one of these days we'll get mine to be this full extent. But Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4, all teaching sessions. 10 a.m. to 4. That is just unreal. That and in that span of time, that is more teaching than Collegiate Week would do. Collegiate Week is, I mean, it's a week. You're there for like 5 days. This is more teaching done than any men's conference, discipling conference, missions conference, pastors conference, because it's just nothing but Bible teaching the entire time. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. So there's Saturday, Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I mean, Sunday is a long day. It's a lot of learning. But the amazing thing is it feels like it goes by fast, because it's not a bunch of fluff. It's not a bunch of emotional appeal, begging, pleading. It is very straightforward, very well prepared, very well presented. Dr. White does a great job. Bible teaching. And one reason why I'm a right divider is, for one, it's not like, Dr. White's the only one that does this. A number of right dividers do this, but nobody else is. The Calvinists aren't doing this. They're not doing this level of Bible teaching. All right. The evangelicals certainly aren't. This is the only group I've found that will commit. Let's see, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 6 hours on Saturday. 10, 11, 12, plus 5. So hold on. Yeah, something like 9 hours. Yeah, 9 to 5, or 8 hours, I would guess, because there's going to be a lunch break in there. 8 hours on Sunday. It's unreal. It's unreal, the level of teaching. Nobody else is doing it. And then it's going to follow up on Monday from, 3 hours on Monday. So I really hope that you, if you're not attending in person, I hope that you watch it online, because this is why we have correct doctrine, because it's Bible-based. We're not going to be quoting Spurgeon. We're not going to be quoting Sproul, Calvin, Augustine, anybody like that. We're going to be citing what saith the Scriptures. Let God be true and every man a liar. And I'm hoping that we can get a hold of some of these young college kids who are thinking that they have to be Calvinists because that's the only systematic theology they've ever been exposed to, and show them, nope, there's a better way. It takes the Bible more literally. It affirms that we can know what the Bible says. We use the same translation. This is the way forward. Let me read some of your comments. Jay says, in the originals drives me crazy. Yeah, because when you say in the originals, that means nothing. It means that, I don't know, I guess we don't have a Bible now. Only the originals were reliable. Only the originals were accurate. We're up the creek without a paddle. Ken talking about that First Church. They believe in a pre-trib rapture, but turn around and talk about standing before the great white throne. I probably overlooked that. You probably read that one. Yeah, it's so messed up. Brother Pugs with us late again. We'll have to watch later. Good morning, and God bless your Wednesday. Thank you, Brother Pugs. You as well. Ken says you should have them both on. I know I said something. Who is them? Who is them both? Let me know. I can't remember. Was I talking about Dr. White? Was I talking about somebody else? I can't remember what I was talking about. Ken, help me so I know who you want me to have on. Jerry says, I missed a few of the broadcasts. I missed the answer to my question about the term limited forgiver. If so, which one did you answer it on? Jerry, oh, my parents, that's right. Yeah, my mom and dad. Yeah, it'd be cool to have both my mom and dad on sometime. That would be good. They could kind of talk about my progression from a messed up college kid and my doctrine to maybe starting to get my head on straight now that I'm 30. Let me see here. Limited forgiver, Jerry. We did talk about it. What I came to the conclusion is that everybody has received forgiveness. The only thing that's not forgivable is not receiving the offer being made. I think it was a couple weeks ago even, Jerry, that we talked about this. Yeah, so Jerry, if you go to episode 352, Theology Thursday, August 14th, the very first question, the meaning of the term limited forgiver. I did present maybe it's just a difference in terminology, but I understand that for some, though, it's a bigger deal. But there you go. Episode 352, Jerry, is when I explored that. Toby says, the fact is the rapture can be today or in 100 years. Yeah, that's true. Maybe 1,000. Brother Puck says, God willing to send people to hell kind of conflicts with God not willing that any should perish. Oh, this has been confessions from a recovering Calvinist. Yeah, the Calvinist doctrine has a lot of, they speak out of both sides of their mouth a lot. Paul cites, for God so loved the world. Yeah, absolutely. That's true in all dispensations. Scott says theology just doesn't sell. Nobody wants to talk about it and certainly don't want to learn it. We are a tiny blip in Christendom's DUMBS radar. Yes, but there are people out there. I'm going to be an optimist here. I get your, Scott, I get your comment there, and you are exactly right. A lot of people don't. That's why they all go down to, next church, believers, generation church, I don't know, whatever weird name they have, and they just want to listen to the pep talks and the garbage being spewed today. But there are people out there. My church has found some. We found some. You're here. You're proof that we a tiny blip? Maybe. But at the end of the day, I've got more Bible students than any church in Oklahoma. I really mean that. I've got them. Give me my small squad, and I will take anybody on. It's my mentality. All right. Finally, one more thing for you before I close out the day. Trump signed an executive order. Is that correct? I think I have that right. I think he actually did sign an executive order to ban flag burning. Oh my goodness! We also have we have another major story here. I'm going to talk about the Trump flag issue later. I was looking for an article on this, but we have a terrible report here. There was a shooting at a Catholic church near Minneapolis. At least 20 casualties reported here. That's terrible. I don't know how much we're going to hear yet. We don't know anything. Happened at 8:27. The students were in mass at the time of it. We're just going to have to wait and see. We'll probably be reporting on this more as time goes on. This is just a terrible, terrible tragedy. Be praying for all the people there. I don't know. We don't know anything yet about who it was. So we'll see. Scott Reed says people need to read the final sentences in that flag burning executive order. Let me see if I can pull it up on the website really quickly. So this is the website, Prosecuting Burning of the American Flag. Our great American flag is the most sacred and cherished symbol of the United States of America and of American freedom, identity, and strength. Over nearly 2.5 centuries, many thousands of American patriots have fought. Okay. My administration. So the Supreme Court ruled. I'll remind you of this. This happened in 1989 when the Supreme Court ruled on it. Don't think that the flag burning thing was baked into the cake of the United States. It wasn't until the Supreme Court ruled on it. And it was a 5-4 decision. Scalia, I think, was the one that... Was it Scalia? Maybe another justice that made the deciding rule. The final sentences is... this order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, and employees. Is this the part you're referring to here, Scott? Obviously, if your knee-jerk reaction maybe is we don't like it, but it falls under the First Amendment. But I will remind you, the First Amendment, it's Congress shall make no law. It says nothing about if it, like a state could pass a law to ban the burning of the American flag. Oklahoma could probably, yeah, I mean, they could pass a law to ban the burning of the Oklahoma flag. And so it's an interesting conversation to me. I get the argument of First Amendment rights. You should be allowed to do whatever manner of speech you want. Can you not protest America, though, without burning the American flag? That's an interesting question. I'm willing to hear the arguments. Let them duke it out. What are your thoughts? Should we be allowed to burn the flag? Free speech would say yes. That's kind of the default. But at the same time, if you're an American and the flag is not held in any regard, I don't know, what has that done for our country? Pre-1989, were we better off, or are we better off now, post-1989, when you can set the flag ablaze whenever you want? I'm going to have to give some more thoughts. Mary says they're reporting 3 dead. The shooter is dead, too. Here's my summary on it. The same thing with every shooting. If you are going to live in a free country, you have to accept responsibility for protecting yourself and your loved ones. The only other option is you surrender all rights and means to defend yourself, and you hope and pray that the government is not tyrannical. That's where you're at. So eventually I hope schools figure out that we've got to get better security if we're going to do these large large schools like this. All right, everyone, we're going to see, I'll probably report tomorrow maybe when we find out more on that terrible event, that tragedy. Thank you all for joining us today. I hate to leave things on such a somber note, but I had to report on it because we just saw it and just found out about it. So everyone, tomorrow we're going to have Theology Thursday. Please give me your theology questions. You can send them to me either on an email or you can comment on them tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. And I'm excited for tonight. We'll see you tonight as we study Abraham. Hopefully the live stream works. I'm going to try to also teach the session that did not go through last time. So just stay tuned there, all right? Thank you, everybody. This has been Shields and Arrows. We will see you tonight.